It's wonderful to be here. I want to thank the CEB for having me here today. It's my pleasure to give back to the legal community. Yanni gave a terrific introduction, so I don't have to spend a lot of time going over that. One thing you should all know is I am the business development and marketing advisor for Hoag Fenton, which is about a 4-attorney firm in the San Francisco Bay Area. As Yanni mentioned, I have a podcast. You can find that podcast on lawfirmsuccessgroup.com, where we interview other attorneys who have developed a book of business. They share with you their approaches and what's made them successful over the years. I have an MBA in marketing and finance. I've run a $100 million business and built a $5 million business from the ground up. And my firm is the Law Firm Success Group. We offer law firm growth coaching for solo and small firms across the country. And with that, let's go ahead and get into it. I'm excited. We're going to go really fast today. It's going to be a quick hour. So take whatever notes you can. Make sure you've got something to write with handy. But don't worry if you don't get it all, because it is going to be recorded. The important thing is to really engage, ask questions through the chat box, through the Q&A box as well. Participate in the exercises. I'm going to be giving you some prompts, some things to type into the chat box. That's where you're going to get the value. The style of this webinar is going to be interactive. So I'm going to ask you to dig deep. I'm going to ask you to really put forth some ideas, because you're going to get out of this webinar what you put into it today. So I'm going to put you to work, and I hope that's all right. So you also get really comfortable with the chat function. When I started doing these webinars several years ago, that was not necessarily a given, but nowadays everyone is so comfortable with the chat. We'll be using both the chat and the Q&A during the webinar, so don't hold back. In fact, if you could, just go ahead and type in the chat box what city you're in right now. We'd love to get a sense for where our attendees are located today. And while you're doing that, let's go ahead and go through. All right, you guys are fast. This is terrific. So we've got, oh my gosh, we've got Eugene from San Francisco, Carissa from Santa Barbara, welcome. Curtis from San Luis Obispo, terrific. Drew's in Santa Ana. John Paul is in Beverly Hills. Robert's in Half Moon Bay, good to see you, Robert. Beth is in Dallas. Hey, thanks for joining from Texas. Danielle is in Temecula, and so many more. Thank you all for joining us today. This is terrific. We're going to be getting into a lot today. It's going to be a fast hour. We're going to be going through the mental game of business development, and I'll explain to you what I mean by that. We'll be talking about the physical game as well, and then we're going to wrap up with the go forward business development plan also. Oh wow, this is great. All these requests coming in for where people are located all over the Bay Area. And we've got some folks in Central California, a lot of people in Southern California, welcome. People from out of state in Atlanta and Dallas. Allison from Torrance, welcome. Good to see you on this. All right, let's go ahead and continue on. So who thought business development was going to be like this? How are you supposed to conduct business development in this kind of a situation where you're there at your desk? This, by the way, is the desk in my office, power cords and all. This can be really difficult, especially if we're used to being, face to face with people and chest to chest with people and having a cup of coffee and engaging live. Conducting business development like this can be really difficult. It can be really demoralizing. And so how do we deal with this? How do we continue to build our book of business now that, and I know this is an overused phrase, this is the new normal? Well, I break it down into two aspects that I'm going to share with you today. There's the mental game, which is what you think, and then there's the physical game, which is what you do. And it turns out they're really closely related. So just quickly type into the chat box, what do you think is more important? Is it the mental game or is it the physical game? Just type that into the chat box right now. You guys are terrific. So everyone has said the mental game. There's a couple of people that are saying both. And yeah, it's both. One without the other doesn't get it done. If you had to pick one, probably the mental game is where it starts. But you need both. You need to have the strong mental game and a strong physical game to get results. A strong mental game is absolutely required. But if there's no physical game to go with that, if you've got a great mental game, but you're not engaging in business development activity and you're just in your office doing your work, um, not going to be as powerful as if you've got that physical game to match that mental game. You're out there, you're getting things done. So they're both required, they're both necessary, and it starts with the mental game, which is where we are going to start our conversation today. So when you think about the mental game, when I think about the mental game, I think about how am I showing up? The thing is, this is a tough time. This is a big adjustment for everybody. And it begs the question, how are we showing up? Because no matter what's going on in your practice, people in your practice area are being successful. No matter how difficult this time is, people are being successful. And you have a choice. All of you on the webinar, whether you're listening to this live or offline, you have a choice on how you respond. What we suggest is that the best response in this situation, the strongest mental game, is to be projecting positivity, to be projecting energy, and to be projecting passion. Those three things, if you're positive and excited, that great energy coming out of you, and you're passionate about what you do. I know as attorneys, you may not feel comfortable projecting passion about what you do, but you all have it, or you'd be doing something else. And that's what clients respond to. That's what referral partners respond to. And so how do you do that? How do you project positivity, energy, and passion when you're stuck in these four walls and you've got kids running around in the background and you've got all these distractions and all these challenges that you're not used to? How do you project all of that? Because this is a mentally challenging time. Well, the way to do that is to practice a few things. And there's three key things that seem to work really well that enables positivity, energy, and passion. And that is practicing honesty, practicing gratitude, and practicing wellness. These are all things you've probably heard before, but when you practice honesty, when you're your authentic self, you're doing what you feel is right. When you're thinking and taking some time, whether it's every day, maybe every morning, whatever it happens to be, or just throughout the day, but thinking about what you're grateful for and who you're grateful for and expressing that gratitude. And when you're demonstrating personal wellness, whether it's meditation, whether it's exercise, whether it's, like I've got a standing desk right now, whatever it happens to be, whether it is, getting out and having a good time too, and taking a vacation, going up to Tahoe or going out to the mountains, and getting some me time in. That wellness is super, super important. And if you practice those three things, honesty, gratitude, and wellness, you're going to find that it's much easier to project positivity, energy, and passion. And this goes to a concept that we call self-talk. And for those of you that know self-talk, terrific. If this is something new to you, I know it sounds a little woo-woo perhaps, but if you talk to the top performers in any profession, whether it's sports, whether it's the practice of law, whether it's acting, whether it's engineering, whatever it happens to be, what you say to yourself about yourself and about your performance has an incredibly powerful impact on how you show up. So I know most of you are a pretty savvy group. Most of you are already aware of the power of self-talk. So I want to hear from you. Go ahead and type into the chat box right now. What are you saying to yourself right now about your business development prospects? Go ahead and type it in the chat box. What are you saying to yourself right now about your business development prospects? And Yanni, if we have any questions, feel free to jump in when I'm doing that.
Yeah, we do have one. In response to your motto, you choose how you respond, project and practice. This person was wondering, is there a role modeling course or coaching that you offer?
Yeah, that's a lot of a lot of what we do. And I'm so glad you asked that question, because this is the first story I wanted to share with you today. Um, there's one of my clients, I'm just going to call him Hugh. And we worked together for about 6 months, and this was several years ago. And I was really surprised actually when he called me up, because I know Hugh. He's a very successful solo attorney in the Bay Area. Um, he's really good. And so I was surprised that he was reaching out and wanted to have a conversation, wanted to engage me as his coach. And as we were talking, he said he really wanted to change practice areas. He did not like the kinds of clients that he was dealing with, and he wanted to shift to another practice area. He also wanted to grow his business. And he felt that if he shifted to this new practice area, he could do that. Well, as we started talking, it became really apparent to me that Hugh's business development efforts weren't being sabotaged by his practice area. They were actually being sabotaged by his existing clients. He hated his clients. His clients didn't value his counsel. They argued his fees. They didn't pay on time. They didn't treat him with respect. And that caused his self-talk to be really negative. He was thinking, oh my God, I got to deal with this client. I got to chase down this bill. I've got this other argumentative client that I need to talk to. I don't want to be doing this. Why am I doing this? There's got to be a better way. This just sucks. And it was impacting his ability to generate business. And so what we did, we started off with his most troublesome client, and he fired that client. And once he did that, he felt so much better. It was amazing how fast he replaced that client, because he was riding a positive self-talk high on this whole thing, and he was showing up much better in business development. And so he began to get rid of the clients that he didn't like. He didn't do it all at once. It took him a few months to cycle through and cycle out these clients. But it was uncanny. As he would replace clients, he would get more back. And he started feeling better about himself and better about himself. And he started loving his practice again. And that started to build momentum. And it didn't take long at all before he was full. He was still in the same practice areas that he originally envisioned being in. But the difference was he loved his clients, every single one. And that is the impact that positive self-talk can have. And so for those of you that are here and on the chat box, go ahead and type in, as well as you show up, what is one thing that you can do even better so that you show up even better than you are today. And as you're doing that, I'm just going to recap some of the self-talk that we have in here. Ellie says, I can do it. Awesome. Jean says, gloomy. Okay. So what can you do to change that? Drew says they're promising. Eugene, challenging. Dennis, need to do online videos, neglecting this. Yes, there's a lot of great content out there. Jean Paul, promising and a large potential for growth. Love that. Carissa, open and curious. David, words of wisdom. You can't land the big fish unless you've always got a pole in the water. Yeah, love it. Dennis is meditation. David is going big game hunting with a telephoto lens. As you can see from my pictures back there, I'm a bit of a photographer, and David wants to aim for the elephants. Love it. All right, so what is one thing you can do to show up even better than you are today? We've got meditation. What else? Walking. Love that. Yeah. Mindfulness. Jean Paul is moving ahead in the presentation. He says we can engage our referral pool more. Absolutely. Action. Nicolette says positivity. Yeah. Plan of action. Great. Socializing. Yes. At a distance, of course. Daily contact. Terrific. These are great. And as we go through the webinar today, you might come up with some ideas. In fact, I hope that you come up with 1 to 3 ideas that you can execute immediately after this webinar, because that is where the value of this session today is going to be. It's what you do after the webinar that really counts. So A quick aside for those of you that maybe are thinking all this positive self-talk stuff and this mental game stuff, it sounds great, but really my practice is struggling. I need to do something serious to improve things fast. So here's what I would say to that. Um, the first thing I would say is that people in your practice area are being successful right now. This is not necessarily a pandemic problem. This is not necessarily a fire problem. There's obviously exceptions, but people in your practice area are being successful right now. And you choose how you respond to this situation. If you're not happy with your practice, you got to work harder, you got to work smarter, and you have to get creative. You have to focus on those three things. There's no magic here. Okay, it's working harder, working smarter, and getting creative. So some examples of that are adjusting the pricing that you have. Maybe you need to adjust your pricing down. Maybe you need to adjust your pricing up. Maybe you need to start charging for free consultations. Or maybe you need to switch your paid consultations to free. Okay, so playing with some of those things, playing with the terms of the payments, experimenting maybe with some alternative fee type of arrangements, creating services which are relatively inexpensive, which are a great way for clients to get going with you, so that they can kind of try and sample and see what they're getting before they really commit to a full relationship. An example of that would be an assessment of some kind, where maybe you evaluate their contracts or you evaluate their patent portfolio. Okay. And then another question to ask yourself is who's actually doing well in this environment, because people are doing well outside of the law. So who is thriving and how can you serve them? Because if they're doing well, they probably have money. And if you can find a way to serve them, you'll be able to get some of that as well. Okay. So who is thriving and how can you serve them? Now, I'm not hearing about this as much as I was maybe a few months before, but people were talking about a pivot. People were saying my practice area is crashing. I need to add another practice area. And I'm here to share with you that that's a myth. Okay. It's desperate, it's short term, and it's probably not authentic to who you are. Here's the thing. You only have so much energy and you only have so much time. Launching a new practice area out of desperation is something that's going to rob you of the energy that you need for your actual practice. You're diverting that energy into this other practice area. So instead of adding a practice area, refocus on your expertise, refocus on what you do the best. Remember, attorneys are thriving in your practice area. Okay. And if you're looking for inspiration, go to lawfirmsuccessgroup.com and listen to the podcast, and you'll hear from some of these attorneys and you'll hear their inspiring stories and you will get fired up. Now, that being said, there's also opportunity. So there's desperation, which I'm advising you not to do, and there's opportunity. It may be that the situation we're in is creating an opportunity for you to pursue a practice area that you've always wanted to go after. In that case, if you're passionate about it and you want to do it, absolutely go for it. That's terrific. My only word of caution is don't just pivot a practice area to go chasing after some short-term revenue. That's not the right approach. If you see an opportunity and you want to commit to it for the long term and you want to get really good at that practice area, absolutely go for it and enjoy the ride.
And actually, it looks like we have one question if you have a second.
Yeah.
Stefan asked, besides adjusting terms, what does work harder mean? For example, working longer hours?
Yeah, it might mean working longer hours, Stefan. I don't know how many hours people are already working, but yeah, it could mean working longer hours, because if the practice is really on life support, an attorney may need to really crank it up to improve the situation and change the situation. Normally, I'm not about working harder. I'm more about working smarter, but there are times where you just have to crank it up and push through. Um, Sometimes though, working harder might mean cutting out the idle time during the day. So I'll give you an example. And this is not a time management conversation, so we're not going to spend a lot of time in it. But when when someone is being reactive to their email box, so when they're getting email and they're responding to email as they get it, so they've got the email open up on their screen, and as soon as they get an email, boom, they respond to it. That's actually wasting a lot of time. Um, and that time might be what you need to reclaim so you can get in more billable hours and so you can spend more time on business development. Because that is really the name of the game. By working harder, we mean spending more time on client work and spending more time getting clients. Anything apart from that is a distraction and should be minimized. And again, this is not a time management conversation. That's a conversation for another day. But oftentimes that's what we mean by working harder. And thank you for the question. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the physical game. So now that we've got the mental game tuned in, your self-talk is good and getting better, and you're really focused on improving your practice, what are you going to do to get clients? That at the end of the day is the name of the game. What are you going to do and what are you doing to get clients? Because the thing is, action begets results, right? Action begets results, and massive action begets massive results. So if you want big results in your practice, you got to take big action. And oftentimes that means not to overthink things. As attorneys, you're very smart. You're paid to think critically. That's what you do. That's the value you add. So it may be tempting to work out a perfect plan. But in this situation, you can't overthink it. You just have to get out there and act, because by acting, the faster you act, the more you learn, and the faster you learn, the more you learn, the more you can improve your results. Much better than you could if you try to come up with some kind of perfect plan. So don't overthink, just act. Project, as we talked about, positivity, energy, and passion when you're doing it. If you're introverted like myself, and yes, I am very much an introvert, you have to give yourself time to recharge, which means you have to pick your spots. But you have to, if you're out there taking action on business development, you have to do it with positivity, with energy, and with passion. And a way to do that on the physical side is to practice taking action like we talked about, but also moving you know, getting out there, taking a walk, going for a run, getting on a workout schedule, whatever it happens to be, even moving faster throughout the day. If you're going to go get coffee, walk quickly, grab your cup of coffee, walk back, all right? Stand up and move around in your workspace. All that exercise will get your blood moving, and it'll get you mentally sharper, and you'll be more likely to take faster action. And the third thing is sprints. And I don't mean literal sprints, but I mean workflow sprints. So typically this is where you take, depending on who you are, you might pick a different time window, but typically about 15 minutes, where you work on something really, really focused, one thing for 15 minutes, right? And you focus on that 100%, no distractions, no diversions, no stepping away. You work on it as hard as you can for that period of time. And then when you hit that 15-minute mark, a buzzer goes off, and you can step away and take 5 minutes or 10 minutes off, and then come back and hit it for 15 minutes. And that focused effort really will drive results, because it amps up the intensity much faster than if you were being kind of passive and just sort of working on it throughout the day. It forces you to be intentional about the task that's at hand. Now, for some of you, 15 minutes doesn't make sense. For some of you, if you're like me, if I'm doing a sprint, I'm in there for 2 hours, because I love it, man. When I get into something, I just want to get into it, and I don't want to focus on anything else. And I can go for a very long time in the work that I do. So you have to find out what makes sense for you. But the key is, when you're in it, you're in it. You're not distracted. You're not diverted. You're not going to pick up the phone. You're not going to answer email. You just get it done as hard as you can. Those are some of the things that you can do to actually drive some action. And I'm just looking in the chat here. We have a chat from Tanya. Let me just read through this here. Do you think that someone who attends multiple networking meetings per week, it's a lot of marketing, is creating the perception that they're not very busy, that is not very good at what they do? That is an interesting question, Tanya. If it's me, and you're asking what my reaction is, that's not my reaction. But it depends on how they show up. So I'll give you two examples. Let's say there's a networking group, and you see this person, kind of all over town, right? They're always out there networking, but when they're networking, they're projecting positivity, energy, and passion. They're the kind of person who, when you see them, you say, wow, they're doing a great job with their marketing. They really have a positive presence. It seems like they're really successful. And that's what the conclusion most people will draw. And the subsequent conclusion that they'll draw is they must have other attorneys to do a lot of the work because they're spending so much time on business development. Okay, that's one kind of scenario. That's a scenario I hope you're thinking of. But there's the other scenario where you see this attorney all over town and they're all kind of acting like this, and they're at networking meetings, but they don't look well dressed. They say a different thing every time when they give an elevator talk. They ramble all the time. Whenever they open their mouth, people just kind of go, oh man, we got to hear from this person again, really. That person probably gives the perception that they're not very successful. So it depends more than how often you show up. It depends on how you show up. So let's go through some tips on the physical game. So these are different ideas that you can take. These are all practical, proven ideas that work well in this situation. And I've worked with my clients to develop all of this. So if you see something here that grabs you, go ahead and please write it down and take action again after the webinar. So the first thing is doubling down on what's worked. So if certain things are working for you, that's where you want to invest more time versus trying something new. I know it may be tempting to do that, but doubling down on what has worked is a really tried and true way of increasing your results in the short term. So if networking is working for you, get more involved in your networking groups. Question from David here through the chat window. Do you recommend an amount of time, a percentage of time, or some other metric to devote to client development? That is an awesome question, David. And yes, I do. And that is going to be coming up here in a couple of slides. So if it's okay, I'd like to just hold off on that because we're going to get to it. And there's some things I really want to talk about on that specific point. So doubling down on what's worked. The other thing is focusing on your referral relationships. Now, this is a great time to connect with people. People want to connect right now. They want to talk on the phone. A lot of us want to do video calls. This is a great time to connect and just see how they're doing. And it's amazing how often we sometimes forget. There's so many things going on in the world right now, and there always will be, that we forget about who's referring us business. And maybe we start to take those relationships for granted just a little bit. This is the perfect time to reach out to those people with no agenda and just simply ask them how they're doing. How's their family doing? How's their business doing? What's going on in their world? And since we're coming up on the holidays, never a bad time to consider sending a little card, if that's your thing, a note, or perhaps some sort of a holiday gift for the holidays, So focusing on your referral relationships. The other one is connecting with your strongest relationships. And I made a difference there. So your strongest relationships may not be your referral relationships. They may be people in your personal life who have no connection to your professional life. So many attorneys who are really great rainmakers get their clients from their personal relationships, whether it's, they've been coaching youth sports for a long time, or they've been serving on boards. I mean, I hear these stories over and over again. A lot of referrals and a lot of business comes from personal relationships. And so connecting with your strongest relationships, whether they're personal or professional, doesn't matter, is going to be time really well spent. And you're going to feel great when you talk to these people. This is also a nice time to think about client service and how you can get better at that. And there's two ways to do that. The first is to really spoil your clients. I mean, do an amazing job of providing client service and delighting them. And then ask them for referrals and ask them for introductions. On a related topic, if you're already doing an amazing job of delivering a fantastic client experience, it's a great opportunity to sit down with current clients and also former clients and get their feedback. How was their experience working with your firm? What did they really enjoy? And do they have any suggestions for things you or your staff or your firm could have done better? At the end of that conversation is a terrific opportunity. I mean, assuming it's gone well, it's a terrific opportunity to ask them for referrals and introductions, right? And the simplest way to do that, if you're asking for a referral, is who do you know who can benefit from what I do? Right? You can take the benefit from what I do part and customize it to your practice area and your practice. But the key point I wanted to point out there is it's who do you know, not do you know? Because if you say do you know, it's easy to say no. Who do you know kind of gives them a half-second pause and maybe forces them to think about that a little bit more. Okay, so who do you know? Introductions, an example of that would be, who do you know that's looking for some help on their board of directors for their nonprofit? That's something I'd like to do more of. Okay. That's another example. So those are some tips, and let's continue on with that. So promoting your community service. This is a big one. A lot of you do amazing things for your community. You give hours every month to serving nonprofits in your community, in your legal organizations and bar associations, in your alumni groups, in Rotary and service organizations. You all probably do a lot. But how many of you actually promote that service? How many of you promote what it is that your organizations are up to and what you're contributing to these organizations? This is a terrific twofer. It's great publicity for you, number one. It's also great publicity for your organization because you talk about what the organization is doing and their mission and why it's so important, especially during this time, and that you're proud to be a member. So this is a great opportunity to really promote your community service and be a champion for your organizations. This is also a nice time to dust off that article that you wanted to write, that you wanted to submit to the Daily Journal or that you wanted to submit to Law 360 or your Bar Association magazine. Great opportunity to dust off that article idea. And if you don't have a place to post it, post it on LinkedIn as an article. A lot of you probably are used to speaking and you're very good at it and you enjoy doing it. Now, instead of speaking, that is now shifted to webinars. And I'll tell you, there's some benefits of webinars. They're super cheap to do. They don't take nearly as much lead time to plan. You can record them so that you can, they basically live forever. And I've had a couple of webinars where that's not necessarily a good thing, but you can post them on YouTube, post them on your law firm's website, and they will continue to exist. But it requires, in some cases, a little bit more than a speaking opportunity in that you have to spend some time, A, getting comfortable with technology, and then B, getting used to speaking to a screen. And the screen doesn't usually talk back and it just kind of sits there and it's sort of this energy vortex that just sucks in your energy. So it takes a little bit of practice, but doing webinars is a natural shift from speaking and it's super easy to do. Social media is free. And it's a fantastic way to just kind of get your name out, get your law firm's name out, stay top of mind. Speaking of which, staying top of mind via articles, webinars, social media, most of you are in an event-driven business, which means that a client doesn't need you until they need you. And when they need you, you better be the first name that they think of. And in that vein, staying top of mind through articles, webinars, social media, email, newsletters, the list goes on. Question from Tanya here, how often should one post on social media? Well, that's a tricky question to answer because it depends on the kind of social media channel that you're talking about. And you mentioned there, how often should one post? Okay, so LinkedIn, thanks for that. Yeah, so on LinkedIn, usually several times a week. But here's the thing, for most of us, we don't have the time to post on LinkedIn several times a week. We just don't. And so oftentimes, if you really want to hit social media hard, you're not going to have the time to do it. You're going to have an assistant or a marketing company, someone help you out with that aspect of marketing. If you do it on your own, um, doing it several times a week can be challenging. Now, don't get me wrong, there's lots of people that do that, but if you're not one of those people, consider, paying someone to help you out with that. Okay. But yeah, Tanya, LinkedIn and a lot of these things are feeds. So the more you post on them, the better. Usually a few times a week is pretty good. And there's social media experts who will say post as much as you can, multiple times a week. There used to be a school of thought around posting once a week. I don't think that really holds true anymore. And just bear in mind, on a platform like LinkedIn, if you do something like an article or a post, um, the tail on that post, so the amount of attention it gets over time, is actually pretty long. If you post something up on LinkedIn and it starts to get attention, you can continue to get comments and views on that for weeks afterwards. So that's kind of neat too. Okay, and then here's one that you might think is a little counterintuitive, which is dropping one marketing activity, actually not doing something. So take the marketing activity that has wasted your time and or wasted your money and dropping it. Okay. Got another question here from Gene. Do you recommend boosting posts on Facebook or Instagram? Gene, I am not a social media expert. I think a lot of that depends on the kinds of posts you're putting out there and your target audience. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more. In some cases, it can make sense. I'll say in most cases, it probably doesn't. But those are generalities. I can't speak to your specific situation because I don't know enough about it. But we are going to get into that here in right now. So digital marketing. This is business development in the digital age, and digital marketing is key for that. So here's the thing with digital marketing. Certain practice areas really do well for digital marketing, but not all of them do very well. So the ones that are the easiest are the business to consumer or the B2C practice areas like PI, like criminal defense, like family law, estate planning, particularly when asking for that referral. Do you know a lawyer who specializes in, when asking for that referral could be embarrassing. So, PI, defense, family law, those are things we're asking for a referral could kind of be embarrassing. So people are more likely maybe to go online and look for someone. So those practice areas benefit pretty well from digital marketing. It's pretty easy. But no matter what practice area you're in, there is value in doing it right. All the stuff fits together. Search engine optimization, the blog topics you choose, the Google ads, the Facebook ads, the social media feeds, it all plays together. And so doing it on your own is really tough. Most of us don't have the time or the expertise to do all that on our own, which means we need to hire somebody. And if you hire several different organizations, you're now going to be spending a lot of time coordinating all those efforts. So the tempting path is to hire one organization to do it all. Challenge with that, they're very expensive. And since the pandemic, I've noticed that those costs are going up. The costs of advertising are going up online. So doing it right, just to give you some ballpark numbers here, a high quality website, probably about 5K. You can certainly spend a lot more than that. SEO and website maintenance is probably around 3,000 a month, depending on what you're going for, right? And this is for pretty modest stuff. I know there are great ones that charge 10 to 15K a month. Google ads, about 3K a month, plus the spend on each of the ads. And then there's all the content creation that you might be doing, the blogs, the posts, the social media posts. And if you get into videos, all the adding your logo, the intro and the outro and the subtitles and scripting it out and filming it and lighting, and it gets to be a lot. And so doing it right tends to be pretty expensive. Doing it on your own tends to be really, really tough. So the question to ask yourself is, will it work for you? It might. It works for a lot of law firms, so it might work for you too, or it might not. And if you're having trouble answering that question, one of the exercises I do with my clients is we take them through a framework called aligned marketing. That's what we use to help them figure out what marketing tactics are best for them. If you don't have that though, go with your gut. Really, if you think that, you know what, I can reach my clients through digital marketing, it will work for my target market, maybe give it a shot. But if the answer is no, and you're thinking, I don't think this is going to work, even though I've got, all these SEO digital marketing companies telling me it's going to work, maybe hold off on that. All right, so let's talk about the go forward plan. What should you be doing for business development going forward? Now, we can spend hours on this, and unfortunately, we don't have that level of time here today, but we're going to lay out a simple framework that you can put to use right now. And here's the framework. It's taking really point 2 every single day for meditation, for positive affirmations, for gratitude. Okay, taking point 2 or more every single day for meditations, positive affirmation, gratitude. That's going to help you project positivity, energy, and passion. And you got to do that. What will also help is practicing honesty, gratitude, and wellness. You'll feel better about yourself, you'll feel better in general, and you'll feel better about the world. And that's going to help you show up better with potential clients and colleagues. Having a great mental game is a requirement, and that needs to be paired with a strong physical game. And so for that physical game, and David, this is getting back to your question, blocking out about 10 hours a week for marketing activities. Now, this is not planning. Planning you can do at other times. This is 10 hours a week for getting out there and doing something, whether that's writing an article, doing a webinar, attending a networking event, it doesn't matter, but blocking that 10 hours per week for marketing activities in your calendar so that it doesn't get blown off. It's absolutely critical. Projecting positivity, energy, and passion. Yeah, that's really important. And the way to do that on the physical side is to practice taking action, right? Not overanalyzing, but doing something, getting physically moving, however you want to do that. And then this idea of work sprints during the day where you really focus single-mindedly, super intensely on a task. That's the physical game. Okay. If you do those two things and then you add in some of the ideas that we talk about, you should be well positioned for business development success going forward. So I know we've covered a lot of ground today. Okay, we've covered a lot of things in a very short period of time, and I appreciate all of you staying focused. So I just want to bring all of this home for you. We're going to do a quick exercise, one last exercise. It's called crossing the gap. Right? So I want you to think about where you want to take your law firm and where you want to take your practice. Okay, that's going to be point B over here. That's where you want to go. And then figure out where you are. That's point A. So once we understand point B, where we're going, and point A, where we are, that creates a gap, right? You go from where you are to where you want to go. So we're going to create a little bit of a gap right now. So just think about, what do you want the most in your firm? You don't have to check this in the chat box, but what do you want the most in your firm more than anything else? Is it more income? Is it more time off? Is it less stress? Is it something else? Think about what you want, the one thing you want more in your firm than anything else. More income, more time off, less stress, or something else. Okay? You should have that by now. It's not that tough. So now, given where you are now, and this I would like to hear from you in the chat box, what is one major obstacle that's holding you back from achieving what you want, from achieving that thing? What is one major obstacle holding you back? Go and type that in the chat box right now, and we're going to play with that a little bit. So given where you are now, what is one major obstacle holding you back from achieving what you want in your firm? You're starting to see some answers coming through. Terrific. Thank you for doing that. Let's see. Laziness disguised as busyness. I really appreciate the honesty there. That's great. Not being an expert in the field I want to practice. Okay, that's actionable, right? You can do something about that. Time. Yeah, time is our most precious resource. More consistency month to month. Okay. Letting others dictate my confidence. Yeah. Yeah. And cases are not moving as quickly. So now that you've identified that obstacle, and for those of you that haven't typed it in yet, I hope you've identified it anyway. So identifying client groups, terrific. Thank you. What would be the impact of removing that one obstacle? So if you could take that obstacle that you're just thinking about and get rid of it, what would be the impact on you and your practice? Let's go ahead and type that in the chat box now. Starting to see some answers coming through here. These answers are always different whenever I do these. It's great. You guys are doing terrific. So we've got predictability, creativity, lots of dollar signs, a better interaction with our referral pool and our client base. Yeah, referrals. Yeah. Obscene wealth and extreme job satisfaction. I love it. Peace of mind. Yeah. And so if those exercises are kind of interesting for you and you're thinking about, okay, here's where I am in my firm, here's where I want to go, and I want to make some changes to do that. We're experts when it comes to helping attorneys reach that next level. More income, more time off, less stress, because what we're doing is we're helping them build that perfect practice. The income they want, the kind of clients they want, the amount of time off that they want to take, that's their perfect practice, and we help them build that. We've got a lot of resources at our disposal, and a lot of those are free, actually. What you're reading now is our manifesto. This is something that all of our clients believe in and really resonates with them. So if this strikes a chord with you, go ahead and email me at that address, alay@yajnikgroup.com, and we'll have a quick chat about your practice. Okay. Also want to let you all know, I have another webinar coming up with CEB, and that is on the one-page strategic plan, business planning made simple. This is usually where we start with all of our clients. We help them create their one-page strategic plan, and that's what I'm going to help you do on October 22nd. And I would love to have you sign up and join. With that, I'd like to go ahead and open it up to questions. You can use the Q&A box if you like, or you can type it through the chat, either way. While you guys are typing up your questions, I'm going to have a sip of water.
Don't be shy, guys. We'll hear from you. Here's one. What do you consistently see in failing practices, and what are some attributes? And that's from Stefan.
That's a great question, Stefan. Let me think through that a little bit. So, okay. So here's kind of some of the things that I've seen. I don't do work with failing practices, by the way. We usually work with attorneys who are already good, who are looking to get to the next level. But some of the things that I see are, the attorney is just wiped. They're just exhausted. they've been wearing too many hats for too long and just grinding away for 20, 30 years, and they're burned out. That's one thing I see. The other thing I see is a practice may have been really dependent upon one or two clients. Um, and so the attorney's not had to do any business development or build any relationships. They just serve, those two clients and a few other clients as well that they happen to get. And then something changes and they lose one of those big clients. And they don't know how they're going to fill their pipeline with other clients. And it's a huge revenue problem for them. It can cause a lot of challenges. But there's probably two things that I see the most of all. The first is they don't keep marketing even when they're busy. And I'm sure you've heard this before, but no matter how busy you are, you've got to continue with business development because you always need to have a pipeline of potential clients. As some clients wrap up, other clients come in and take their place. And if you stop marketing, you're going to be on what I call the revenue roller coaster, which is when you're not busy, so you start marketing, and then you get a bunch of clients and your revenue goes way up, and then you stop marketing and you start serving your clients, and then the work starts to wrap up and then your revenue goes down. So then you got to start marketing again and so on and so forth. It gets really old and it's exhausting and incredibly stressful. And so that's something I see quite a bit is clients that just shut down business development when they get busy, and they got to panic and restart it when those clients wrap up. The other thing I see is clients not implementing business best practices into their law firms. They're running their law firms without any kind of formal training on how to run a business. And unfortunately or fortunately, if you run a law firm, whether as an attorney, you're also a business owner. And the law firms that are really successful, they take the time to implement these best practices because they know that it's going to reduce their stress, it's going to increase their revenue and increase their profit and increase their income. They'll be able to serve clients much better than they could before. They're going to have some sort of an exit strategy for their business. And they're going to be able to take more time off because instead of the business just relying on them and having them wear so many different hats, now they've got a team, whether it's people that work directly for them or contractors or part-time employees or partners, but they have a team that can help them run their firm. I think when I start to see attorneys running their law firms as business people, that puts a big old grin on my face because I know they're doing well, and I know that practice is going to be secure and robust and will stand the test of time.